Let's start by saying our key verse. Psalm 91:14. The Lord says, I will rescue those who love me. I will protect those who trust in my name. Psalm 91:14. We've been talking about rejoicing in the Lord for the last several weeks, and rejoicing not only in the good times, but in the tough times. One of the things that we said is that you can always find somebody, some way in which things could be worse. And you can rejoice that you're not in that situation. Well, today we have an opportunity to hear about some people who are in some of those worse situations and how the Lord has provided for them. And just the ways that God is working through a confluence of events and circumstances. God brought together some people from entirely different parts of the world in ways that we are able here at Trinity to be involved in what God is doing with their lives. And today we happen to have people who are with us who just happen to be here at this time. And I took the opportunity because they can tell us firsthand about some of those ways that God is working and that Trinity is involved in the ways that God is working in two completely different parts of the world. And the first is Cambodia, where we support an orphanage and some schools. And so Nancy and Bob Plaxico were there and visited in November, and our son John and his wife Suzanne, who are here, saw it before that and got us started in it. So they're going to be telling us about it, and then we'll be turning it over to hear from God's protection and blessing in a different part of the world. So Nancy?
Good morning. Good morning. Today, John, Vince, and I are going to tell you a story about Cambodia and about an amazing Christian there who has dedicated his life to the poor children of Cambodia and serving and caring for them. As our key verse said, protecting and providing and sheltering them. But first, before we get to our story, I want to just very briefly give you some information about Cambodia. Here it is. It's bordered by Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. The last 50 years in Cambodia have been very difficult. During the Vietnam War, the Ho Chi Minh Trail ran along the border between Cambodia and Vietnam, and that area was heavily bombed during the war. But then the worst happened in 1975 when the Khmer Rouge took over in Cambodia. It was a fanatical regime led by Pol Pot that turned on their own country. And about 2 million Cambodians lost their lives during the 3 years that the Khmer Rouge were in power. And that's out of a country of 12 million people, so that was horrendous. The Khmer Rouge were overthrown in 1979, but things were still very difficult there in the 1980s and 90s as civil war continued to break out. It was just in the last 5 to 10 years that Cambodia started to stabilize and get on its feet. And life is improving there, but it's still one of the poorest countries in the world. So one of the drivers for the growth in Cambodia has been tourism. Most of the tourists go to see Angkor Wat, which is a huge complex of temples built 1,000 years ago. That's one of the top wonders of the world. Angkor Wat is located just outside, this is some of the temples, it's located just outside the town of Siem Reap. And that's where our story unfolds. This time I'm going to turn it over to John, who will take it up here. And I'll be back later to give you the current update.
Thank you, Nancy. As Nancy mentioned, Cambodia has had a bit of a rough past, especially in the more recent times with the genocide and the problems that they've had with that. And the story that we're going to tell you is about how God has taken that tragedy and taken a Cambodian orphan from that tragedy and brought him in partnership with Trinity United Methodist Church in order to help orphans and poor children in Cambodia be lifted out of poverty and reach a relationship with Jesus Christ. So there's many threads in this story, and we're going to weave them together. We're going to show how God has weaved them together to build this tapestry that brings children out of poverty and brings them into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And it's going to start back in 1975 when the Khmer Rouge was overthrowing the government there. The lower southern portion of Cambodia that borders the ocean was governed by had a governor, and his son was named Samuth. When Pol Pot overthrew the governor was executed along with the rest of Samuth's family. Samuth, a 15-year-old boy, fled into the jungle along with many other Cambodians, joined a group of about 33 and made for the Thai border, where he wanted to escape the genocide. Along the way, they had to pass through fields mined by the Khmer Rouge, and the final minefield, as they had to get across the Thai border, 30 of the 33 members and the refugees did not make it. He was one of the 3 that made it across that minefield. Once he reached Thailand, there were no refugees camps. Thailand didn't want to have refugee camps, didn't know what to do with these people coming in from Cambodia, so they put them in prison. So Samuth was put into prison, where he met the prison cook, the chef, that led him to the Lord, gave him an Old Testament, gave him a New Testament, and taught him what it was to be a Christian and about Christianity. So Samuth became a Christian there in the Thai prison, was released, and decided that instead of going to America or going to Europe, as many of the other Cambodians were doing, he wanted to help Cambodia. He wanted to go back to Cambodia and help out as much as he could. He felt this was his call from God. So the first thing he did, he learned a trade. He became a dentist. And for 13 years, he worked in those refugee camps along the Thai border, doing work as a dentist. In 1993, he was able to get back into Cambodia and started to work as a dentist, trying to figure out how can I help Cambodia. Because of the genocide, there was a whole generation that had lost its moral code. It had lost its ethics. The value of human life was no longer there. And so he was looking for a way, how can I bring this back? How can I bring this back along with God? 1998, he's kicked, there was a second, or actually this was the third revolution in Cambodia in recent time, and he had to flee the country again over to Thailand. When he met the guards there, they told him, this is the second time you've escaped death. We shouldn't call you Samuth, we should call you Lucky Man, which is when he introduced himself to me. So I'm going to leave that alone, with Samuth escaping back into Thailand, and I'm going to talk about my own story, because it gets woven in there as well. 1995, I'm a 15-year-old boy, and I'm on a missions trip, a short-term missions trip to Bolivia in South America. I go with Team Mania Ministries, and before we leave for Bolivia, we are challenged to pray about, should you be involved with missions? Pray about where you should be involved with missions. So I'm over there, and I am earnestly praying, God, do you want me to be involved in missions? And I hear almost an audible voice say yes. I was like, well, where should I be involved? And I heard Cambodia. It was the clearest message from God I've ever received. And so I heard him say that, and then when I got back from the trip, I started to learn about Cambodia, because I knew nothing about the country, except that it was in Asia. So I started learning about Cambodia, and I would even go on the internet and look at pictures of Cambodian children and pray for them to see what can I do. So it comes to 2001. My father has connected me with the United Methodist Church in Cambodia, and the country supervisor there invites me to come over, spend 3 weeks doing what I can to help out over there with the United Methodist Church. So I do that and take a break in the middle of that time to go up and see the temples at Angkor Wat. This is the big tourist draw. So I'm there, I'm wandering around the temples and enjoying it. I don't have a tourist guide because there are no ropes or anything. You can go basically anywhere in there. I like feeling like Indiana Jones. So I'm wandering around in the temples, and I'm approached by this man. And he comes up and asks me where I'm from. I tell him I'm from the United States, and he is very excited because he speaks English, and introduces himself as Lucky Man. Tells me that he has a Christian school nearby Siem Reap. Siem Reap is the city here. And he brought in some students looking to meet somebody and tell me about the school. So we talk a little bit, and I tell him about what I'm doing there with the church, and he becomes very excited when he finds out that I'm a Christian. Because then he tells me that he had been praying, and God told him that he was supposed to come to the temples and meet a Westerner that would help him. So he was based 10 kilometers away. He and 5 students on 3 bicycles came that 10 kilometers because God told him that he was supposed to meet someone here. He didn't know who that was, and then he met me. So I talked with him. I took a picture with him and the students, and went back to the United States, not really thinking much about it. And then you never know if people like this are con men or what's going on. Back in the States, I received a letter from him with receipts for all of the things he bought with the money I gave him, and pictures of his school, and so forth. So we kept up a correspondence over the next 5 years with my wife Suzanne and I supporting him when we could. So then, 2005, we decided to go over there to visit the orphanages and visit the schools and see how it's going. So we go over there and meet up with him. This is when I find out more about what he's doing. So Lucky Man got back into the country in 1998, and he said, and he wanted to find a way that he could lift these children out of poverty and teach them about Jesus. And he really felt God called him to create these schools. So he started creating schools with volunteer teachers coming to teach about Christianity, teach about how to, they did some rudimentary agriculture, some sewing, human rights, and English. Because if you can speak English, then you can get a job that pays about $100 a month, and that's a living wage in Cambodia. So being able to speak English really lifts people out of poverty.